Hello, friends. Notes on English literature. 16th and 17th century poetry. Selected poems of John Donne. The canonization. Brief questions with answers. Brief questions 1 to 21. Question 1. What do you mean by the term canonization? Answer. According to Christianity, the term canonization refers to proclaim a person to be a saint after his death by a canon law and to be fully honored as such. Question 2. What is the significance of the title of the poem, The Canonization? Answer. Canonization in the Christianity stands for sainthood and immortality. The poet, along with his beloved, wants to be canonized for love to attain immortality. So he ascribes the poem as canonization that indicates his death regarding his own love affair. Question 3. For God's sake, hold your tongue and let me love. Who does the poet say this to and why? And so Donne says this to some friend of his who is trying to dissuade him from making love to his beloved. Question 4. Can you gauge the poet's age or while you go through the poem? Answer. We can gauge that the poet is approaching old age while we come across words like palsy, gout, gray hairs. The poet says that it is useless for his friend to rebuke him for suffering from paralysis and gout or baldness or infirmities like old age. Similarly, it is futile for him to try to dissuade the poet from making love to his beloved. Question 5. What does the poet suggest his friend to do? Answer. The poet suggests his friends to do anything he likes. He can raise his social position by acquiring wealth and can improve his knowledge by studying arts and settle down to a career at the royal court and meet the king personally and get into some business so as to see the king's image stamped on coins. Question 6. How does Donne argue that his love is harmless, innocent? Answer. Donne employs several hyperbolical expressions to prove that nobody or nothing is affected by his lovemaking. He says that his sighs have not drowned any merchant's ship. His tears, shed out of love, have not flooded any farmer's land. His colds have never elongated winter and delayed the coming of the spring. His passion, caused by love, has never led to a disease like plague or thus added to the number of the dead. Question 7. How does the poet make a defense of or justify his lovemaking by citing the examples of soldiers and lawyers? Answer. To justify his lovemaking, the poet says that the fighting instinct of soldiers has not been disturbed in the least, nor are the lawyers busy with litigation prevented from their practice by his love affair. Question 8. What does the poet mean by the moth, fly, and candle images? Answer. The poet and his beloved have been imaged as moths that destroy themselves in the flame of the candle, but they are at the same time the candle which burns and consumes itself. In fact, the reference here may be to sexual intercourse, which drains all the lover's energy. It is in this sense that the lovers die at their own cost. Question 9. Is there any mythological allusion to the canonization? Explain. Yes, there is a mythological allusion in the poem. The poet compares themselves with the phoenix, which is a mythological bird that consumes itself by the fire after 500 years and rose renewed from its ashes. Question 10. What do you understand by the expression the phoenix? Answer. The phoenix is a mythological bird, mythical bird. It is said that only one such bird exists at the time and when its term of 500 years is over, it burns itself on a burning pyre and then renews itself from its own ashes. Question 11. What does the phoenix symbolize? Answer. The phoenix symbolizes the immortality of the love of the poet and his beloved. Question 12. In what sense does the poet compare himself and his beloved to the phoenix? Answer. As the poet and his beloved are united in love, they are the phoenix itself. Their sexes are meshed together so perfectly that they form one being of unisex. After they die, they come to life again in the same form as they were before, just as the phoenix after death arises from its own ashes. Question 13. What do the dove and the eagle symbolize? Why does the poet compare himself and his beloved to the eagle and the dove? Answer. The eagle, a bird of prey, symbolizes strength, while the dove stands for peace or gentleness. The poet compares himself and his beloved to the eagle and the dove because both of them are violent and gentle and prey on each other. Donne used these symbols to indicate their carnal desire. Question 14. We die and rise the same. Who is the speaker and what does he mean by this expression? And so John Donne is the speaker of the statement in this poem, the canonization. The phoenix riddle is explained here. The poet believes that the intensity of their love would turn them into a unisex entity which may die but resurrect themselves in the same forms and prove the mystery of their love. Question 15. I explained death and resurrection implied in the expression we die and rise the same. Answer. The death as occurs in the expression is not physical death. Instead, the poet thinks that he and his beloved would be so forgetful and callous about the material world that they would be considered dead by all. Again, the term rise signifies that their love is not only physical but also spiritual. Question 16. How does the poet want themselves to be canonized? Answer. The poet and his beloved are prepared to die for love if they cannot live by love. The tale of their death will form the subject of love poems. Their love will be commemorated in lyrics and sonnets, and thus they will attain sainthood or immortality through canonization. Question 17. How will the lovers worship the poet and his beloved? Answer. Lovers will come to the graveyard of the poet and his beloved to worship them as martyr saints to love. They will invoke their blessings, saying that their perfect love has made them each other's hermitage. So they will pray to God to mold their love into their pattern. Question 18. What, according to Donne, would render them sainthood? Answer. The sonnets written by the followers of the poet and his beloved to commemorate their immortal love story would render them sainthood. Question 19. What is main object, purpose of the poet in canonization? Answer. The main object or purpose of the poet in canonization is to depict the immortality of love between himself and his beloved, but he seems not too much concerned about his own immortality. Question 21. What is the true nature of Donne's love in canonization? Answer. Love, according to Donne, must be based on both body and soul. In canonization, Donne tries to reach his beloved soul through physical love. Question 21. What are the birds mentioned in canonization? Answer. The dove, the eagle, and mythical bird phoenix are mentioned in canonization. Thank you friends for watching my video.